Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to do a follow-up to the last video. You don't have to have watched it, but in that video we talked about a fox that showed up at the Temple Mount and the prophetic implications of that and how the Jews view that. And as I was going through this video, there was a paragraph at the end of one of the articles that listed a whole bunch of different strange things that happened in the year 2018. Which piqued my interest because that's the year that President Nelson became president of the church. And I think I meant to do this the very first time that I did a video about foxes at the Temple Mount, but this time I've actually done it, and I'm glad that I did, because it is really interesting. Those things took place at a very interesting time. Let's remind ourselves what those things were really quick. So this is a preview of what we're going to talk about in the video. This is that paragraph I was referring to. As the focus of Jewish prayer and the site of the future temple, the Temple Mount has frequently been the scene of prophetic images. In July 2018, a large segment from one of the stones of the wall suddenly fell, barely missing a woman. Last year, which was also 2018, the morning prayers of the last day. Now this one's wild, and it turns out that there's video for this. Last year, during the morning prayers of the last day, Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, a strange mist rose from the ground and covered the Dome of the Rock. You guys, you're going to want to see this. And there's only a couple places on YouTube where you can find it. I'm going to show you, and I also added it to my recommended videos playlist where I recommend videos from other YouTube channels. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then after that, just a few weeks earlier, a snake crawled out from between the ancient stones. At around the same time, strange sinkholes appeared adjacent to the Sha'ar HaRakamim, where the Palestinians later turned the Palestinians later turned into a mosque. Okay, and if you don't know what the Sha'ar Rakamim is, that's the Golden Gate. We've talked about the Golden Gate a bunch of times on the channel. It's this right here. It's the one that's sealed. It's the one that a lot of traditions hold that either the Jewish Messiah or Christ, when he comes at the second coming, will walk through here to enter the temple. So it's kind of a key area, and there were sinkholes over here. All right, so like I said, the timing of these things is really interesting, and we're going to look at all that. But I think we should, before we jump into all these different stories, we should look at them in this context, or at least one of them for sure. So if we go to President Nelson's final talk of the October 2018 General Conference, I just want to read these two paragraphs. Okay, but the kicker is right here at this last part. My dear brothers and sisters, the assaults of the adversary are increasing exponentially in intensity and in variety. Our need to be in the temple on a regular basis has never been greater. And we talked about this, the last few videos, as we've talked about the temple garment and protection that results from faithfully wearing it and keeping our covenants. Okay, I plead with you to take a prayerful look at how you spend your time. Invest your time in your future and in that of your family. If you have reasonable access to a temple, I urge you to find a way to make an appointment regularly with the Lord, to be in his holy house. Okay, we're talking about the temple. And these stories, all of them, have to do with the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Okay? Just look. Okay. So then keep that appointment with exactness and joy. This phrase has always stood out to me, with exactness. Okay? I'm actually going to do a video sometime in the future about this phrase, because a lot of interesting things have been said about this specifically in General Conference. So that'll be coming maybe later this week or something. Okay, I promise you that the Lord will bring the miracles he knows you need as you make sacrifices to serve and worship in his temples. Currently, we have 159 dedicated temples. The proper care and maintenance of those temples is very important to us. With the passage of time, temples are inevitably in need of refreshing and renewal. To that end, plans are now being made to renovate and update the Salt Lake Temple and other pioneer generation temples. Details on these projects will be shared as they are developed. So this is where we get the first news that I'm aware of that the Salt Lake Temple is going to be renovated. President Nelson used the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple as essentially a metaphor for many of his talks, different spiritual lessons that he wanted to teach. And a lot of us have associated it with the second coming, postulating that it needs to be done before the second coming, or perhaps it doesn't need to be done. Maybe it'll give some people false security, thinking like, oh, it's not going to happen until the Salt Lake Temple is done. And therefore, those that aren't watching may be caught off guard. Who knows? Who knows? But a lot of us have felt that it's significant that this is happening now. Especially when thinking about the 2017 and then the eclipse this year in October that goes over Utah, and then the one in 2024, which is coming up. So the announcement that the Salt Lake Temple is going to be renovated. Let's keep that in mind as we go through this. So I'm going to do it in the order that it's mentioned in this article in Israel 365 News. So first, we're going to talk about this stone that fell from the wall, from the western wall. Okay. And we're going to start this with an article from The Guardian. Woman has close call as 100 kilogram stone falls from western wall. What is that in pounds? I don't know. Okay, to pounds. Can we please hurry this up? I'm trying to make a video. Okay, while that's thinking. Okay, an elderly worshiper had a close call on Monday when 100 kilogram, oh, here it is, 220 pound. Okay, so that's heavy. It's, unfortunately, I'm heavier than that. So she almost hit something roughly the size of me, or the weight of me, but less. Anyway, stone fell from Jerusalem's western wall and crashed at her feet. And I have video of this, okay? In fact, let me just pull that up. Here's the video. This is on my Twitter or X account. And so you see her right here. I'll zoom in. You see her right here. And here's, oh my gosh. There's that stone that falls down from right there. That is crazy. She's just praying. She's worshiping. And boom, boom. And it kind of bounces like toward her. So I'm glad that she's okay. Israel's Antiquities Authority said the masonry may have been dislodged by erosion caused by vegetation or moisture in the biblical wall, the holiest place where Jews are permitted to pray. Quote, I didn't hear or feel anything until it landed right at my feet, said Daniela Goldberg, a 79-year-old Jerusalem resident who had gone to the wall in the early morning to worship. A security camera captured the moment at the site. Revered by Jews as a remnant of the compound of the Second Temple destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The footage showed the stone falling from a height of about 7 meters, interesting number, or 23 feet, in a nearly vacant section of the wall adjacent to its main plaza, where Jewish worshippers traditionally cram written prayers into crevices. So, and this is just a little tangent and a side note. So this was not at the main part of the western wall. Something that I didn't know is that if you're approaching the western wall, if you go to the left, that's where the men go. If you go to the right, that's where the women go. But even further right, there's a place that they call the egalitarian portion of the wall, and I guess it's mostly conservative and Reformed Jews that go there and they pray together, men and women together, which the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox frown upon. So this is where it happened, okay? And that's going to be important in just a minute. Okay. Worshippers had flocked to the site worshippers had flocked to the site days earlier for Tisha B'Av. There it is again, Tisha B'Av. That's the saddest day on the Hebrew calendar. It's the day that they remember the destruction of the first and second temples, because Jewish tradition holds that that's the day that they were destroyed, as well as things like the Spanish Inquisition and the expulsion of Jews from England and other things too. So we've been talking about Tisha B'Av quite a bit lately. Do I have my calendar up? It just recently happened. Let's pull up hebcal.com 2023 calendar. So we are now in August. Today is August 2nd, and Tisha B'Av was actually exactly a week ago, starting at sundown exactly a week ago. This is the week this year that they passed the first bill of the judicial reform. There were all those protests. I did my siege video. That bill was passed on Monday. And we were talking about how this is the day that the fox showed up. It was on the 26th, so it was after sundown on the 26th. But that's when the fox showed up. And just watch my last video. If you didn't watch it, go watch it. I don't know why there weren't more people that watched it. It's crazy, because if you're like, oh, he already did a video about that back in January, because there was another fox in January. No, there are details there that you might want to be aware of. And it has to do with Tisha B'Av. So you have that. And then back in 2018, you have this stone that falls from the Temple Mount as part of the Temple Mount compound, which is kind of a little visualization in modern times of the temple being destroyed or falling apart. Of all times of the year for that to happen, seriously? Okay. Yeah, that's just coincidence. Okay, so, quote, a great miracle occurred when a stone weighing about 100 kilos fell near the worshiper and did not hurt her, Jerusalem's mayor, Nir Barkat, said in a statement. The Jerusalem municipality temporarily closed the section for a safety inspection. It is built near piles of rubble believed to date from the time of the Second Temple. The main western wall, esplanade, remained open. So that's like the main part that you usually see in like videos and stuff of the western wall. Now, looking at Israel 365, they have the deeper implications of this on a spiritual level, according to Judaism. Not that this is our doctrine, but I think it's wise for us to keep tabs on how they're experiencing signs, because I think the Lord is sending them signs that they understand. This article is called "Kabbalist Explains Stone Falling from Western Wall." Okay. So here it is. You know how on the regular Western Wall, you don't have all this rubble right here. This is the part that's reserved for the Reform Jews and the conservative Jews that want to do joint, like mixed prayers, like both genders. This is where it happened, and there's the stone. The rabbi of the Western Wall put out a call for soul searching after a massive stone fell from the structure on Monday. One Kabbalist, which is Jewish mysticism, it's esoteric teachings. One Kabbalist answered the call, bringing esoteric clues that the event signaled a permanent end to the Jewish exile and the beginning of the supernatural regeneration of the Third Temple. Now you might be like, who the heck who cares? Who cares what a Kabbalist thinks, right? They're just Jews. But guess what? Something really interesting happened this year, 2018. Let's go to my Second Coming timeline. What happened this year? Like I already said at the beginning of the video, President Monson passed away on the 2nd of January. And then 12 days later, interesting number, that's when President Nelson becomes president of the church. And he has been doing a lot of things, especially when it comes to temples. He now holds the record for the number of temples that have been built. President Nelson. So at a time that a Jewish Kabbalist sees a stone fall from the original temple compound, he's thinking, okay, this is the beginning of the supernatural regeneration of the third temple. And maybe he's not too far off when it comes to temples that have been announced since President Nelson became president of the church. But there's more. Let's continue. Early Monday morning, a massive stone fell from the western wall, narrowly missing a Jewish woman who had come to pray at dawn. The stone, weighing several hundred pounds, landed on one of the two platforms used for egalitarian or mixed gender prayers. This occurred the day after the fast of Tisha B'Av. So right after Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, just to remind you, that's a big day where they think about the destruction of the first and second temples. And the day after, in 2018, a part of one of those temples falls. You know, after literally thousands of years. Well, you know, almost 2,000 years. This occurred the day after the fast of Tisha B'Av, which commemorates the destruction of the two Jewish temples on the Temple Mount. The strange occurrence, coupled with its timing, led many to assign spiritual significance to the falling stone. And this is the key. Led many to assign spiritual significance. So it doesn't matter if other stones have fallen at other times and nobody was there to witness it. It very well could be that the Lord caused this particular stone to fall the day after Tisha B'Av to create this reaction, to work on the minds and the hearts of the Jewish people in the lead up to the second coming. Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich, the chief rabbi of the Western Wall, clearly felt this was the case. Quote, "This is an unusual and most rare incident that has not occurred for decades." All right. I didn't go that far into it to find the last time it happened, but I'll just take his word for it. He continues, "The fact that this powerful incident happened a day after the 9th of Av fast, that's Tisha B'Av, in which we mourned the destruction of our temples, raises doubts and questions which the human soul is too small to contain and requires soul searching." End quote. Rabbi Yekutiel Fish, author of the Hebrew Torah blog, Sod HaKashmal, did some soul searching and discovered the stone falling from the Kotel, which is the name of the Western Wall, had amazing Torah significance. Rabbi Fish noted that the term Kotel Ma'avari, or Western Wall, in Gematria, which is Hebrew numerology where you assign numbers to letters, is equal to the current Hebrew year 5778. Quote, "This is a hint that the time for the true end of the exile has arrived." You guys, President Nelson, out of all prophets of this dispensation, I feel like he has made the biggest deal about gathering Israel. Certainly all the prophets have been concerned with missionary work from the very beginning, starting with Joseph Smith himself. But a really big theme with President Nelson is gathering scattered Israel. And what does that accomplish? He gathers in the exiles. And it's hastening that time of the true end. You know, if the second coming happens during his presidency, that will make this even more significant, I think. You know, when we look back in hindsight, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But that is like his big focus, is gathering scattered Israel. So even though the Jews currently view that in a different way, they're thinking about Jews throughout the world literally going to Jerusalem, making Aliyah, which is, ascending, immigration to Israel. While they're doing their gathering, we're doing our gathering, and I feel like maybe unbeknownst to them, they can feel that connection, or they're in the same frame of mind that we are, in a sense. Okay, continuing, Fish says, the stone fell from the 9th level of stones that are visible, and it also happened the day after the 9th of Av fast. Pinchas was the 9th Pinchas, I don't know. Pinchas Pinchas was the 9th generation after Abraham. 9 signifies permanent existence. Since any number multiplied by 9 gives a result that has a sum of 9. Elijah the prophet, a reincarnation of Pinchas, because in Judaism they do believe in reincarnation. Not like everybody goes through it, but they have like a belief in that. Ascended to heaven in a fiery chariot and never died, so he also represents permanence. Both Pinchas and Elijah were men of truth. The gematria of emet, or truth, is 441. So if you add up the number, if you add up the numerical value of those letters, then it's 441. Whose numerals, when added together, equal 9. And the essence of truth is that it is permanent, like the number 9. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's going to be permanent pretty soon. The second coming, and leaving this celestial world behind and moving into a terrestrial, or a world in a terrestrial condition, not a glory. The earth has not experienced glory yet, but it will go from a celestial condition to a terrestrial condition. We've already studied that in the past. So I think that this is very interesting. Now, if we go on to the next couple things, if you're interested in this, it turns out that I'm not gonna read through all this, but this is an article from 2 years after that happened. Here you can see the platforms up here. Oh wait, no, that's I think this is like the ramp that you take if you're Jewish or Christian, and you want to do a tour of the Temple Mount. This is the only entrance that you can go through, and it's a guided tour, escorted by police. Anyway, 2 years later, this Jerusalem Post article written by Yazar Hess complains about how when that happened, I guess the ultra-Orthodox were like, okay, no. We need to not only make sure the whole place is safe, we need to shut it down for a while. And then we also have to go through halakha, which is the Jewish law, to really, really investigate it, which took a long time. In reading between the lines, it's the opinion of this author, Yazar Hess, that they were just trying to prevent these Reform and conservative Jews from going to the regular part of the Western Wall, which divides men and women to the two sections. And that's how they view that. That's how they think it should be. So anyway, not to get into that whole thing, but if you want to read more, this goes into all of that, just like different things that probably would have upset you if you were a Reform or conservative Jew. You have this website. I think this is like the official. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is like the official website for that portion of the wall, but the egalitarian kotel. And this is where everyone's together doing all the things which the Orthodox look down upon. And then a history of that. Okay. Anyway, so let's look at that video one more time. There she is. Where is it? Right there. Gosh, dang it. Okay, that's crazy. Here she is right here, by the way. I guess she took pictures with it later. Look how big that is compared to her. That would have killed somebody. Okay, now look at this. Oh my gosh. Strange mist covers Temple Mount. This article is dated September 30th, 2018. here's a screenshot. I wish I could play the video for you. If it was on Twitter, then I would do that. But it's on YouTube, but I don't want to play it here because I could get a copyright strike. Chances are very low. This was uploaded by Eliyahu Berkowitz. I don't know if that's the same, my Eliyahu Berkowitz that I interviewed from Israel 365, but it's the same name. And here you can see that really weird mist that it's talking about. You can see it right here. You can see it even more clear right here. You can see like a wider shot that just suddenly arose. And by the way, this was on the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. We're going to get into all the details. The person that took this video said that the video doesn't give it justice. He had to have been there in person. And I can attest to that, because if you've ever tried to take a picture in the fog or a misty place, cameras just, a lot of times they can't capture it. They can't capture the full effect. Okay, so what's going on here? And by the way, this happened at a very interesting time in relation to General Conference, but let's read through some of this. By the way, let me skip through this video a little bit. So here you see the fog or the mist, whatever you want to call that. And it really, really does stand out. And this is being taken from the other side of the Kidron Valley, where you have all these Jews, celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. They're looking across the valley, and as they're doing this, there's this weird fog or mist that just appears over there. Let me see if I can find it again. Yeah, there it is. So strange. I'll put the link for this in the description below for these two videos. It's actually, I think, it's the exact same video, but one of them is longer. This one's like a half hour long. This one is only 6 minutes, but okay. So what on earth is going on here? Okay. Israel 365, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, Rabbi, strange mist on Temple Mount is war on spiritual plane. Okay. You know what? No. Yeah, you know what? It's okay. No, I'm not going to play it. Okay, never mind. Okay. On Sunday, a group of Jews praying on the Mount of Olives witnessed a large white cloud rise up out of the ground from the Temple Mount. All right, so Sunday. Let's look at the Jewish calendar. So October 3rd is the date of this article. Okay, so he's talking about Sunday. So let's go back to 2018, and here's the 2018 calendar. So what did I just say? Yeah, so the 3rd, when the article was written, was this day. Okay, and it said that it happened on Sunday. So you have to go back Tuesday, Monday, and then, oh, yeah, here you go. Sukkot 7, also known as Hoshana Rabbah. And this is the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, not counting the last 2 days, Shemini Atzeret, which we've talked about before in Simchat Torah. Okay, that's also technically part of it, but you have like the 7 main days of the Feast of Tabernacles, and it was on the last day that this happened, on the 30th of September. And exactly 1 week after that was the 7th of all days, the 7th of October. And it's the same day that President Nelson announced the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple. Okay. So 1 week before he announces that major renovation, which I think has Second Coming implications, 1 week before that, on the other side of the world, in Jerusalem, on the Temple Mount, there's a strange mist that appears on the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So let's go to my Second Coming timeline. President Nelson becomes president of the church the 14th of January. 14 is 2 sevens, by the way. This happens during a time where there's a mysterious radio signal from space repeating every 18 minutes and 18 seconds, which is very odd and strange. We've talked a lot about 17 and 18. 7 is the number of completion and perfection. Okay. 10 is also, in the mathematical sense, and according to Jewish thought, also a number of perfection and completion. It completes, the series of 10, and so mathematically it's perfect. So 7 and 10 are related in a sense, and when you add things together, like 7 and 10, now this is not according to Judaism, but I'm thinking along those lines. It's like perfection, perfection, completion, completion. 8, because it comes after 7, and 7 harkens back to the 7 creative periods of the earth. 8 is the number that represents a new beginning. It's the beginning of a new cycle. And we've seen a lot of 17s and 18s and stuff like that throughout this channel, and have wondered if 18 or 8 could be symbolic of moving into the millennium. This part of Earth's history, these 6,000 years, is reaching completion. And so we'll be moving into the final era, the new beginning, the new world. So I don't know. But anyway, you had that going on. You have all these changes take place. High priest and elders quorum combine into one quorum. Home and visiting teaching retired. You have the landmark Hope of Israel worldwide youth devotional, where President Nelson called for the Lord's Youth Battalion for the youth to enlist in that. And then it's between that time and General Conference that you have these things take place. The stone that fell down, the day after Tisha B'Av, and then the strange mist that showed up on the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, the last day of Sukkot. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, that's when President Nelson announces the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple. It's just crazy. And then later we'll talk about the snake emerging from the Western Wall. Okay, so let's get back to this. It's so crazy. The phenomenon was recorded by Josh Wander, a Mount of Olives resident. A sunrise prayer session was organized on a plaza overlooking the Temple Mount for the holiday of Hoshana Rabbah, the last day of the week-long holiday of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. Quote, just after sunrise, I was recording a Facebook Live video of the prayers when I panned my camera to the Temple Mount. All of a sudden, I noticed a cloud or fog that erupted from the northeastern corner of the mount. It seemed to be coming from the area which was designated for women in the time of the temple and the eastern gateway, which confused me since I know that today it is an orchard or of olive trees and there's normally no activity there. So what in that area now in these days, nothing happening there, an olive orchard, what is causing this smoke, right, is what he's wondering. Okay. The balcony of Wander's home overlooks the Temple Mount, so he is intimately familiar with the scenery. By the way, lucky duck having a place like that. He is also a regular visitor to the site, and he has never seen anything like this before. Okay, this is him talking again. Quote, it was billowing up, so I thought some Arabs might be burning branches, but it was much too early for Arabs to be on the Temple Mount, and I didn't see any Arabs there before, during, or after, and certainly no fire. It was not just a thin mist, and the video doesn't really convey the presence of the mist. So it wasn't just a thin mist. If you're looking at these images right here, you're like, and even here you can kind of tell, especially like right here, it is pretty thick. That is really something to behold right there. Oops. Okay. Okay. When he lived in the United States, Wander served as a pilot in the Air Force Auxiliary, where he was trained to identify clouds. Meteorology and identifying clouds is an essential part of pilot training. Quote from him again, from Wander again. There was very little wind, and the smoke just seemed to crawl across the mount toward the Dome of the Rock. That's very poetic wording right there, and a little bit creepy too. It seemed to come out of a specific spot, but after several minutes, it seemed to be rising up from multiple sources in the same general area. End quote. Wander reluctantly described the mist with a word he rarely uses. Quote, "It looked supernatural," he said. Not trusting his own eyes, Wander asked the people around him if they could also see the mist. Most were immersed in their holiday prayers and had not noticed, but when it was pointed out, they confirmed the mist presence. The phenomenon lingered on the ground around the Golden Dome for more than 20 minutes. Quote, "I am certainly not the kind of person who sees signs in nature, but this was too out of the ordinary to ignore. It looked eerie, and the location, the site of the Holy of Holies, is too significant." Yeah, because remember, this mist making its way to the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock, the majority believe that that's where the Holy of Holies would have been. The foundation stone in there would have been in the rock being referred to of the Dome of the Rock would be the foundation stone inside the Holy of Holies. In fact, let me just show you really quick. So I have this up. This is BYU's Virtual New Testament. And I mean, you can picture it. I'm sure that you already know. Excuse me. But let's just walk right in, shall we? I mean, what you guys, hopefully you have eyes to see to know that this is not just a common occurrence. It's not just, it's nothing. Here we are in the Holy of Holies. Let's go in here. So here's the foundation stone, right? So essentially, for all intents and purposes, from what he observed, it looked like that mist was making its way toward this, what was anciently the Holy of Holies. Let's come over here. And in fact, let's go back here and then go to the Mount of Olives. And I guess you could say this is roughly, the area that he was. Not really so much here. It seemed like he was like kind of more over this way somewhere. I don't know. But if the temple had been there, okay, could you imagine being back in those days when the temple was still intact and seeing a mist go across temple grounds? That would have been insane. Okay, so this person who says himself that he's not the type of person to see signs in nature, a message seems to have been delivered to him and hopefully to anybody else that was able to see it, to hopefully prepare them for the second coming and for what's about to happen. When Rabbi Yosef Berger heard of the sighting, he responded with equanimity. Quote, "If you had told me that it happened any other day of the year, I would not have assigned it any significance," Rabbi Berger told Breaking Israel News. But continuing, he says, "But to have this cloud appear on Hoshana Rabbah is highly significant and makes me happy, knowing the Gula, or redemption, is at hand." Right? When in Judaism, when the Messiah comes and initiates the Messianic era. The rabbi cited Midrash Talpiot, a collection of homiletic and oral teachings compiled by Elijah ben Solomon, Abraham HaKohen of Smyrna in the 17th century. Quote, "It is written in Midrash Talpiot that the war of Gog and Magog, which is the final war, right? We have the same concept, will begin 3 hours before the dawn on Hoshana Rabbah." So the day that they believe, according to their traditions, that Gog and Magog will begin. So who knows if there's any significance to that? It could be, or it may not, but whatever. The battle will last 3 hours, and then the Mashiach will begin to appear, Rabbi Berger said. And then he continues, of course, this war is accompanied by flames and smoke, as was hinted at in Psalms. So you see this right here. If this idea is put into the minds of any number of Jews, that this was a sign, and it was a sign pointing toward Gog and Magog, but more particularly when the Mashiach will appear, then I would say that that's preparing their minds for the second coming. I would say that that's the effect that it had. Hashem, which means the name, it also is just a way of saying the Lord, or it's like the equivalent. This is from Psalms 46, 6 through 10. Hashem is in its midst. It will not be toppled by daybreak. He puts a stop to wars throughout the earth, breaking the bow, snapping the spear, consigning wagons to the flames. Quote, it very well could be that a major battle was being waged on the Temple Mount on the spiritual plane, and the only part of it that we could see was the smoke, Rabbi Berger said. Continuing, he says, it has been clear all year that a war is being waged for the Temple Mount. The rabbi noted that a record 28,000 Jews ascended to the Temple Mount in the past year, and an additional 5,000 visited the site during the recent holidays. Quote, quote, smoke is only one aspect of war, an illusion that we can see with our eyes, while the real battle is being waged on plains we cannot see. The real battle goes much deeper. We may be seeing other aspects of the battle in the near future. And isn't it interesting when we go back to the Second Coming timeline, that's how this rabbi is viewing it. That's what he's telling other people. And just the month before, a couple months before, in July. In July, that's when President Nelson, for the first time, introduces the concept of the Lord's Youth Battalion and asks the youth to enlist in the Lord's Youth Battalion. Look at the parallel taking place in Israel and, throughout the rest of the church. Can you... It's amazing. It's amazing. There has never been a time in the history of our church that there's been this type of idea introduced, the Lord's Youth Battalion. Certainly, other prophets have used military imagery because that's in the scriptures and it's other places. A lot of times we talk about God's army. In fact, there was the movie, there was the movie called God's Army movie. Let's see. I don't know. Do any of you remember watching this before, God's Army? I'm actually not sure if I've seen it myself, but what I do remember was watching a movie by Hailstorm Entertainment called The RM, and at one point he's taking a date to the movies, and they have like a parody poster up that says God's Navy. I guess if we did it today, someone should if anyone redoes the RM, they should do God's Space Force. Okay. Anyway, okay, but I think you'd agree that there's never been like this idea of the Lord's Youth Battalion or anything really like it until President Nelson, and it happens this year. Just a couple months before this rabbi says what he's saying about this mist and how there's an unseen battle that's taking place. I mean, come on. sorry, in my mind, this perfectly goes together. Okay, so he continues. During Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, we read about Gog and Magog in the Haftarah, a section of the Bible, usually from the prophets, read in the synagogue that is thematically linked to the Torah reading. On Pesach, which is Passover, we read as the Haftarah Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones, Rabbi Berger said. Continuing, he says, the war begins on the last day of Sukkot, and the resurrection begins on Pesach. Rabbi Berger noted that Hoshana Rabbah is the day of judgment for the nations. So the day that this happened, okay, the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, called Hoshana Rabbah, is the day of judgment for the nations. And I feel like that goes along with the Lord's Youth Battalion too, it's President Nelson has made it clear that we're at the end. And he even said, that we're in the ninth inning, or we're in the last half of the ninth inning. In fact, if we go to quotes, Second Coming, let's see, ninth. This is what he says. Using a baseball analogy, we are in the last half of the ninth inning, right? Completion, the end. The last article you were talking about 9, it's the end. Oh, and by the way, ninth inning. Whoa, ninth inning. Okay, using a baseball analogy, we are in the last half of the ninth inning. Our Heavenly Father and His Son chose you to be on their team when the game is on the line. Or you could replace the word game with battle or war. When the war is on the line. This means they know you. Okay, and then, that is his agenda for this final inning. So anyway, you can take a look at that. Again, this is on my quotes, Second Coming tab or spreadsheet. That's part of this workbook. And the link for this is in the description below. It's in every video. Okay. Yeah, a day of judgment for the nations. And then he continues, we are seeing a realignment among the nations concerning Israel. The United Nations is going through changes and may cease to exist. In England, America, Germany, and so many countries, their politics are being determined by how they relate to Israel and the Bible. This is a precursor to what will happen soon, what is already taking place on levels we cannot see. Wow. So I would encourage you to go watch this video. The link for it is in the description below. It's also on my recommended videos playlist. But this is wild. And I don't think a whole lot of people have really seen it. This video right here has only had 34,000 views. This one has only had 17,000. So it's really a very small number of people that even know that this happened. And there's only this one, well, actually two. There's only these 2 articles on Israel 365 that really talk about it. Holy cow. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. So now let's talk about the snake that emerged from cracks in the Western Wall. This is from Times of Israel. Okay, prayers at the Western Wall were unexpectedly interrupted on Wednesday night when a snake slithered out from stones above the women's prayer section. Do you see another theme going on here? Women. And when we think about President Nelson and him talking about how the women right now in the church are going to be the ones that bring in large numbers of people into the church, I don't know if this plays into that, but okay. So, because remember, this first video, or this first story. Let's find her again. Where is she? Ma'am, where did you go, please? Okay. So when this happened, it was a woman that was there, with this strange mist on the Temple Mount. He talked about how it started in the place where, if the temple was there today, um, the way that was at the time of Christ and King Solomon, that it was coming from the area where the women would have been. Okay. And now this next one. So a snake slithered out from stones above the women's prayer section. Ma'am, please, let's be respectful. The reptile caused some panic and embarrassment, quote unquote, among the worshippers below, until a quote unquote skilled snake catcher, quote unquote, was found to capture the serpent, according to the Western Wall Heritage Foundation, which released video of the incident. And I just happen to have that video. Here it is. This is the skilled snake catcher in question. Let's go back to the beginning. Without sound, please. And here he comes down the ladder with the snake. And you can't really see this. You can kind of see it, but it's like on the other side of the ladder. Okay. The catcher pulled the snake from the wall to applause. Sorry. Okay, let's be serious here. No, that doesn't mean that you can start playing. The catcher pulled the snake from the wall to applause from worshipers and posed for photos. Posed for photos with his quarry. Yeah, you're a hero now. He identified the snake as a coin-marked snake, an indigenous species which looks threatening but is non-poisonous. The snake seemed to be in pursuit of pigeons or other eggs. It was likely trying to fatten up for the winter, the Unet news site reported. The sudden appearance of a serpent emerging from Judaism's holiest site prompted speculation among internet commentators, some of which who drew connections to Adam and Eve. And, well, Adam and Eve in the temple, right? And predicted both the coming of the Messiah, the second coming, and bad tidings for the people of Israel. The stake was not the first frightening incident at the wall this year. In July, a 220-pound boulder dislodged from the wall and fell to the plaza floor, nearly crushing a woman at prayer below. So they're making note of that other interesting thing. It seems like Israel 365 is the only one that really noticed the mist, because I haven't seen that in any other articles. But speaking of Israel 365, let's see what they have to say about this. Okay, watch Snake in the Temple. This is by Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. He's like almost always the one that does like these biblical stories, or what they call biblical news right here. First you have IDF, biblical news, Israel news. Okay, a snake wriggling out from between the stones of the Western Wall in search of a meal brought with it a message straight from Jewish mystical teachings, connecting the archetypal enemy of man, Satan, with the high priest in the temple, Christ, right? Because Christ is ultimately, that's whenever there was a high priest back in Old Testament times, the high priest was symbolic and representative of Christ, the only one at that time, or pointing to the fact that he was the only one that in and of himself could enter the Holy of Holies, right? So the high priest himself was a type of Christ. So, and also perhaps serving as a harbinger of the Messiah, the second coming. You see how all these things can be pointing their minds, and is pointing their minds to that time, the second coming. Women went to the Kotel, or the Western Wall, on Wednesday. Women who went to the Kotel on Wednesday were shocked to see a snake crawling out from between the ancient stones. A Hebrew language blogger quoted by Unet News noted the serpent made its Jerusalem appearance during a hotly contested mayoral election, connecting it to the destruction of the Second Temple. Quote, the snake appeared during this time of dispute and divisiveness at the site of the temple, which was destroyed because of widespread hatred and divisiveness. Well, and that's one area where we would part from our Jewish friends. We know that the reason why the temple was destroyed is because they rejected Christ when he came. To them, in their tradition, it happened because of infighting among these different sects like the Zealots and Pharisees and Sadducees, and because they weren't unified, God allowed them to be destroyed. That's their view. It's not our view, obviously. It's because they crucified Christ. Pointing to the pigeon that fled the snake in the video, Sod 820, which is like a blog or something like that. This is the website right here. Seems like it's a blog. They have a black hole behind the crown. They have a video here, but I can't get this video to play, so you might try this yourself. This seems to be like another video of that incident. But anyway, it says, pointing to the pigeon that fled the snake in the video, the one that we can't see, a Hebrew language Kabbalah site cited Midrash or homiletic teachings. Israel is compared to a pigeon or dove, noted for the faithfulness and having a single partner in its lifetime. Such is Israel, faithful to Hashem, or God, literally the name, even in times of danger. Quote, we are truly in dangerous times that directly precede Mashiach. The article in Sod 820 read. And then continuing, just as the pigeon is safe so long as it seeks shelter among the stones of the Temple Mount, the Jews are protected by the Torah commandments. When the pigeon comes out from the stones or the Jews move away from the Torah, they are in danger. This is just like us, isn't it? Isn't President Nelson specifically always talking to us about the covenant path? Right here, it talks about being protected by the Torah commandments. In modern times, this would be the equivalent or the more full version of the law, I guess you could say, that Christ brought with him. We have all the covenants, the covenant path, and that's what keeps us safe, spiritually and physically sometimes, right? So, for instance, the Lord is going to preserve his people. He's going to preserve the righteous, mostly. There's still going to be incidents, but by and large, if you're living righteously, the Lord will preserve you for the second coming and the millennium. And along with living within our covenants, actually going to the temple to enter into those covenants and then help others enter into those covenants, that's another thing that keeps us safe. So in this case, it's a beautiful parallel, once again. A pigeon in the stones of the Temple Mount. Protection, right? The site also claimed the appearance of a snake coming out of the stones of the Temple Mount. The site also claimed the appearance of a snake coming out of the stones of the Temple Mount could be seen as an auspicious sign. In Gematria, Hebrew numerology, Nakash, or snake, equals 358. The same as Mashiach, Messiah. The Zohar, it's a Kabbalistic book, and in the article here it says the basis of Jewish mysticism, explained that the evil inclination personified by the snake in Eden will make a resurgence in the days before Messiah. Yeah, and we know that. We know that Satan, he is like at the top of his game right now. He has a lot of power right now. So we're in line with them with that. Tempted to come and drink sustenance from the enormous levels of holiness that will appear in the world in the end of days. Let's read that again and let's think about how many people are beginning to go to the since the time that the temple was restored, starting with the Kirtland temple. Let's think about how the numbers keep growing of people going to the temple, and think about that as we read this sentence. So, The Zohar explained that the evil inclination, or in other words, Satan, personified by the snake in Eden. So Satan will make a resurgence in the days before the second coming, tempted to come and drink sustenance from the enormous levels of holiness of all the people going to the temple and the restored gospel and the restored church that will appear in the world in the end of days. That's amazing. It's like they're in sync with us, but in their own tradition. It was noted in Sot 820 that the snake appeared in the women's prayer section, emphasizing its relevance to women. In Genesis, it is described how Eve was tempted into sin by the snake. And then they read that verse from Genesis. And then later, according to Jewish tradition, the curse of Eve, represented by menstrual blood and labor pains, will be canceled out in the Messianic era. You all know that scripture from Isaiah, right? It talks about how it talks about how like there's these pains now, but it seems that in the millennium those things are going to cease. I guess I could look that up if you guys want me to. Anyway, or you could just do it yourself. Whatever, just let me know in the comments below. Before the second coming, or what it says in the thing here, before the Messiah, God will kill the archetypal snake, removing the curse of Eve. Okay, it's talking about the second coming and the millennium. Another connection between the lowly snake and holiness is implicit in the Hebrew words. The letters of the word nakash can be, that's the word for snake, can be rearranged to spell koshin, or breastplate, worn by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, in the temple. The Zohar states that the tikkun, which is fixing, of the snake could be accomplished in the third temple by way of the breastplate. Embedded in the breastplate were 12 precious stones, each representing a tribe of Israel. When faced with a difficult situation, the kings of Israel would inquire, and the stones of the breastplate would shine in sequence, providing them with a divine response to their question. This was a tikkun for the snake, which gave a deceitful purpose or a deceitful response to Eve. So, I mean, that's, make of that what you will. Oh, here's another video of it. I didn't notice this before. So I'll put the link for these two videos in the description as well. Okay, so here we go to the last one. The last one, if you'll recall, this has to do with a sinkhole that appeared near the Golden Gate, which goes by a few different names. It goes by the Shushan Gate. It goes by the Gate of Mercy. And then the Hebrew name for it is here. We'll read that in just a little bit. But again, the Golden Gate is this. This is the Golden Gate. This is the one that tradition holds that the Jewish Messiah will enter in through, or for Christians, that Christ will come during the second coming and he'll enter in through that way. Although I haven't found anything in our church or our doctrine that really says that, but it wouldn't be too surprising. And I will point out that it's been a while, maybe a couple years, I think, at this point. Well, maybe a little, yeah, about a year and a half or something like that. When I did a video comparing the shape of these arches to the church symbol, if you take the new church symbol and you take off the bottom portion, where it says the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it fits perfectly into these arches. And you might say, well, arches, that's just classic architecture you find all over the world. And that's true. But I show example after example after example where the shape of the church symbol does not fit in many, 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 many different arches from the ancient world. Additionally, if you do add the full symbol together with the church's name underneath Christ, the whole symbol fits into the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. And I've done videos about that. In fact, maybe it'll show up here, maybe not, I don't know. But I have a playlist for the Salt Lake Temple, but I'll put these two videos at least in the description below. I would encourage you to watch that. I think there's more to the shape than meets the eye. And I do realize that the arch that he's coming through is supposed to represent the tomb. I'm already aware of that. But just watch those videos for all the details that I found when it comes to the church symbol in the arch. Okay, so anyway, the church symbol, at least the top part of it, fits into this archway perfectly. I used Photoshop to do an overlay. Okay, so this is the area in question where a sinkhole appeared. Okay, so that's what we're talking about now. Okay, the Temple Mount has been the scene of several strange phenomena recently. Large sections of the ancient stones suddenly falling away, an inexplicable mist that surrounded the dome of the rock, a snake crawling out from between the rocks, and a sinkhole that appeared adjacent to the Gate of Mercy, what we were just looking at. Jewish visitation to the Temple Mount is severely limited, and the sections of the compound which Jews are permitted to visit are likewise restricted. As such, changes that occur on site are not always immediately noticed. Though the Temple Mount is a bit removed from the geologically active Jordan Rift, a pre-Messiah earthquake is prophesied to drastically change the topography of Jerusalem. So this is talking about that great earthquake at the time of the Second Coming. The article quotes from Zechariah 14:4. On that day, he will set his feet on the Mount of Olives near Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall split across from east to west, and one part of the mount shall shift to the north, and the other to the south, a huge gorge. By the way, just as a reminder, Turkey Olive Grove earthquake. I still cannot wrap my mind around this. This is a really big sign, I think, that the earthquake earlier this year that kind of started this year off caused a Mount of Olives in Turkey to cleave in twain, to split in half. I'm assuming that when this happens in Jerusalem, it's going to maybe look something like this. Maybe it'll be cleaner. Maybe it'll be larger. Who knows? Oh my gosh, you guys, if you have eyes to see, it's so clear that we're getting so close. It may be that this dramatic geologic development has already begun. About 1 month ago, Jews going up to the Temple Mount began to notice a change in the sidewalk adjacent to the area of the stairs going down to Sha'ar HaRakamim, the Gate of Mercy. So it's not talking about on this side of the wall. So if you were like doing a tour of the Temple Mount, so let's go over here. From what I've seen a few different videos, and it seems like what they do is the police will escort them kind of like around this way. There's like a path or something over here, and then they kind of like go around counterclockwise and then back to the starting point, the entrance over here. Here's the ramp. So you go up this ramp. Here's the western wall. So you go up this ramp, and then that's where the tour takes you, like. All right, so as they're over here, and I think that this is where it's at, this portion right here. As they were walking by here, they noticed a sinkhole. Okay. Okay, so began to notice a change in the sidewalk adjacent to the area of the stairs going down to Sha'ar Rakamim, the Gate of Mercy, or Golden Gate, as it is known in Christian literature. The sidewalk had sunk visibly and was cracking as if the ground was opening up underneath the paved stones. The location is highly significant. The gate is described in prophecy as the gate through which the Shekinah, or divine presence, used to appear and will appear again when the Anointed One, the Messiah, comes to enter the third temple. Later on in the article it says, this is a quote from Rabbi Berger, I don't know. He says, just before Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, the Sanhedrin stood outside the Sha'ar Harakamim and blew shofars. So at the time of the temple, the new year, the Sanhedrin would come out here, blow shofars for the new year. Okay, so just picture that. All right. Of course, it may be that the broken flagstones are the result of less spiritual developments. Quote, the level that we now walk on is several meters above what was ground level in temple times. Yaakov Hyman, chairman of the United Temple Movements, told Breaking Israel News. Quote, it is all landfill. No one knows what is underground. End quote. Unfortunate political realities make it unlikely that any real knowledge of what lies underground will ever be known. This was epitomized by the wanton destruction caused by the Waqf, which that's the organization that's in charge of the Temple Mount. And it's overseen by Jordan, the country of Jordan. Caused when the Waqf built the El Marwani Mosque in the so-called Solomon Stables located on the southeastern corner of the Temple Mount. In the early I'm going to read this too because this is important to understand. In the early 1990s, Chief Sephardi Rabbi Mordecai Eliyahu began to advocate the construction of a synagogue on the Temple Mount in Solomon's Stables. The large underground space constructed by King Herod was empty. It seemed like an ideal solution, allowing Jewish access that was separate from the Muslim entrances. But the rabbi's call for a synagogue was followed by the Waqf converting the space into a mosque, capable of hosting 10,000 worshippers. The construction was in gross violation of the status quo in all agreements with the Israeli government, using heavy equipment in a site that was archaeologically significant. The construction greatly weakened the southern wall of the Temple Mount, requiring massive and unsightly repairs. About 350 truckloads of earth was taken from the site and dumped in the Kidron Valley, which is that valley between the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount. In a June 2000 interview with the Jerusalem Post, the chief Waqf archaeologist said that his colleagues examined the material taken out of the site, quote, either before or after the excavation, and found nothing of special interest. In 2004, Professor Gabriel Barkay began the Temple Mount sifting project, laboriously searching through the dirt. So the dirt that the Waqf excavated for this new mosque on the Temple Mount. Barkay has succeeded in recovering countless artifacts from the Jewish temple, including a partial reconstruction of a tile floor. Quote, the Waqf still works with large machinery on the Temple Mount. There may be an empty space underneath, but in any case, the soil is very soft and not suited for heavy equipment. We tried to get the government to prevent this, but they did not answer our requests. End quote. As the spokesman for the Temple Mount activist organization Yerae, Elishama Sandman is privy to the details of what takes place on and around the Temple Mount. Quote, the earth is certainly moving under the Temple Mount. It is impossible to say whether this is from geological changes or illegal construction. In the same way, it is impossible to rule out divine causes. The Waqf won't let any scientists or archaeologists investigate, and certainly no rabbis, but it is clear that something is happening there. So, and I don't know. I mean, could that be responsible for this mist? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I doubt it. Could it be responsible for the sinkhole? Yeah. Yeah, it definitely could. Now, the mosque being referred to, because they were talking about I thought they were talking about the southeast quadrant, over here. Let me remind myself where. I believe right here, this is the Golden Gate. No? Yes, there's the Golden Gate. I could have sworn that in one of the videos that I watched, they were looking down here. You see how there's like some steps right here, and this like goes down, like what was described in the video. I thought they were talking about a mosque made right here in this little area. I don't know if that's what the article was referring to, because that doesn't seem like it's the southeast quadrant. Maybe this is what's being referred to, because it looks like there's some kind of entrance right here or something like that. Not really sure. Let's take a look right here. Huh. So this is the other side. This is the other side of the Golden Gate. I could have sworn I saw something about that there was like a mosque here, but this is dated April 2018, so maybe not. So maybe it's just like further down this way somewhere. I don't know, where they saw the sinkhole. Anyway, it's very interesting, you know, that happened, whatever the cause. You know, is it, does it have something to do with the land already changing? I don't know. What I can say is I did some videos about the Dead Sea, and there have been rivers that have formed that weren't there before, that are going into the Red Sea. No, sorry, the Dead Sea. Let's go back to this map so that it doesn't crash. There's water flowing to the Dead Sea that hasn't been there before. Just do a search on my channel for Dead Sea. It'll come up. All right. There are fish that are starting to appear in sinkholes right up against the Dead Sea. And there does seem to be a lot of changes taking place in Israel geologically, especially with sinkholes. In fact, if you do a search for, let's see, Israel sinkhole, you will find story after story after story about all these like sinkholes that are appearing in Israel. In fact, maybe one of these times, maybe I'll actually go through all the effort to, no, don't play. I'll go through all the effort to try and put it on a timeline or something. It was like a sinkhole opening up in a swimming pool. Look at that. So that one is from July of last year. Small sinkhole opens up in central Tel Aviv. Latest in series. This is January of this year. Small sinkhole opens up in central Tel Aviv. Latest in series of similar incidents. Yep, there it is. Dang, maybe I should make a video about this. Because I watch different channels sometimes, and some have noted some like pretty big sinkholes that have appeared in Israel. See, this is November of last year. The big old sink. Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh my gosh. A lot of these are just talking about the swimming pool incident. Sinkhole precursors along Dead Sea. This is from Geoscience World. It's like a research paper. Anyway, you'll find no end. You'll find no end of stories about sinkholes in Israel. I remember one that opened up like near a hospital. I think it was a hospital. Yeah, it was like in a parking lot. Here it is. Giant sinkhole swallows cars in Jerusalem hospital. Let's go to this one. This will be our last one. Okay, now that's a pretty upsetting situation if your car suddenly gets swallowed by a sinkhole just randomly while you're at the hospital. So, I don't know, something's going on over there. I'll have to investigate it further. So, Could this have anything to do with that future earthquake? I don't know. Who the heck knows? Could it have to do with more water coming out at some point from underneath the Temple Mount, or the future side of the temple, or Jerusalem in general, and going to the Dead Sea and maybe other places? Don't know. But something crazy is happening over there. So anyway, let's circle back around. Let's go to timeline, second coming. So suffice to say that a lot of really interesting things happened in Israel, and specifically at the Temple Mount. At the Temple Mount, the first year of President Nelson's presidency. And especially this strange mist that appeared exactly 1 week before General Conference, the Sunday sessions of General Conference. Make of it what you will, but I think that there's a lot of parallel things going on between them and us, both of us being prepared in our own way for the second coming. And let's just remember, at this point, this was 5 years ago. And then it was in April of 2019, that's when President Nelson said that time was running out. So I think that we should take this seriously. Get to the temple, progress down the covenant path, wear your garments, keep the Sabbath day holy, pay your tithing, do all the things that you know that you need to do. Live the word of wisdom. There's a promise in the word of wisdom that if you keep it, the destroying angel will pass you by. And I've looked up quotes talking about that destroying angel, and it's not just talking about a destroying angel in general. Like it could kind of be that, but I found a bunch of quotes that talk about that destroying angel in the sense of the second coming, being preserved in the second coming. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.